So today we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. Last time we talked about factoring difference of perfect squares, and today we're going to talk about factoring trinomials. The first step that you want to do is see if you can factor out a GCF, a greatest common factor, first. And in this problem on number 1, there's nothing that is divisible to all three of them, so I can't do that, okay, on this problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is multiply the first and last term. And when I multiply these two together, I'm going to go ahead and write it over here. This becomes 12x squared, all right? I want to go ahead and do one big T over here, and I want to write all the factors of 12x squared. That gives me 1x and 12x, 2x and 6x, 3x and 4x, all right? Now that I've gotten written them down, I want to go back to my problem and look to see which one of these factors will add together to give me a positive 13. Remember, it's going to add to give us a positive 13. The only ones that add together and give us a positive 13 is the x and 12x right here. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and rewrite this equation, and I'm going to replace it, and instead of writing 13x, I'm going to write plus x plus 12x right here. So I have 4x squared plus x plus 12x, and then plus 3. Notice I now have 4 terms here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to group the first two together, and I'm going to factor out whatever these two both have in common. And the only thing that they have in common is an x. When I do that, I'm left with 4 and then 1x left over here, and then x divided by x just gives me plus 1. Now I look at the other two. What can I factor out of both of these? 12 is divisible by 3, just like this is divisible by 3. So I'm going to go ahead and take out a positive 3 that it's divisible by. When I take 12x and I divide it by 3, that gives me 4x, and 3 divided by 3 is a plus 1. Notice that my parentheses are both the same, which is what I want. Okay? My final answer, I write whatever's on the outside, x plus 3, and I put it together. And then I write what is written in parentheses, and I only need to write it one time. And now I am done. Okay? Let's go ahead and move on over to the second one. I've got 4x squared plus 9x minus 9. Check for GCF. There's nothing I can factor out that's not a 3. If it was a 3, I could divide all of them by 3. Since there's no GCF, I'm going to go ahead and multiply my first and last term together, and now I have negative 36x squared, okay? Again, I'm going to go ahead and write all my factors of 36x. X, 36x, 2x, and, not 12, 18x, 3x, and 12x, 4x, and 9x, and then we have 6x and 6x, okay? Notice it's a negative. What that means is that in my factors, when I multiply them together, one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative in order for you to multiply together and get a negative 36, okay? Remember, we go back and we look here at our middle term. Which one adds together to give us a positive 9x? Obviously not this one. These aren't going to somehow add to give us 9. Okay? Looking at 3x and 12x. If one of them has to be positive and one of them has to be negative in order to equal a negative 36, then I'm going to look in here and say, well, here's a positive 9. The only way to get a positive 9 is if my 3 is negative. So I go back over here and I rewrite this equation using these factors right here, okay? 4x squared minus 3x plus 12x minus 9. I always tell my kids to remember whatever the sign is of the middle term, that's going to be the sign of the big one, okay? From here, I factor out what I can in the first two. Right here, the only thing that they have in common is an x, so I'm left with 4x minus 3. On here, I can just take out a positive 3, and I'm left with 4x minus 3. So my last answer is going to be x plus 3 and 4x minus 3. And now I am done. Okay? Let me do another one. that has a GCF in it. Okay, over here, number 3, we got 6x squared plus 4x minus 2. This time I do have a GCF. I can divide the whole thing by 2. And when I do that, my problem now reads 3x squared plus 2x minus 1, okay? I'm going to go ahead, I know my answer is going to have 2 parentheses in there. I'm going to go ahead and drop down this 2. So now, when I'm working my problem, all I have to look at is this right now. Okay, and I'm going to multiply first and last term, and I get my negative 3x squared, okay? When I do my factors, the only thing I have is x and 3x. Now, when I go to my middle term, I have a positive 2x. The only way that this equals a positive 2x is if my x is negative, okay? Remember, one's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. All right, so I'll go ahead and rewrite it. I have 3x squared minus x plus 3x minus 1, and I factor out an x in the first one, and I'm left with 3x minus 1. Over here, I can't factor anything out other than a 1. You can always factor out a positive 1, and I'm left with 3x minus 1 again. So my answer is going to be 2 from the beginning times the outside, x plus 1, and then my parentheses is 3x minus 1, and I am done. All right, the last one, notice that this time we have a trinomial. I'm sorry, a binomial from last time. So this is a review from last time. If I first check my GCF, notice that I can divide the whole thing by 2. And when I do that, this gives me 16x squared minus 49. That's right, just making sure. When I divide it by 2, that GCF, remember that 2 was on the outside. Don't forget, when you have your answers are going to be in parentheses, just like the trinomials. You can go ahead and drop that 2. Remember, this is a difference of 2 squares. Okay? So what that is notice you just have a trinomial. Remember from last time, we take the square root, we've got our 2 parentheses. The square root of 16 is 8. 8x, the square root of 49 is plus 7 and minus 7. So my answer is going to be 2 times 8x plus 7 and 8x minus 7. And now you are done.